Welcome everybody to our team call. We've got Rick Redford here today. He's a 25 to 30 year industry expert in network marketing. And Rick, in fact, I recognize one of the products that you founded, which was Viz. Many years ago, Francis got John and me on that product. We loved it. Really great nutritional. So welcome to our call today. We're looking forward to hearing all about your experiences and what advice you have for us as newcomers to network marketing. Cool. So Francis, do you want to start?
That'd be great. The one thing about this industry is it's like the movie. You get to meet the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, Rick is in a different category. He's in the excellence category. There's few people you meet in life that you can really call a friend. Fortunately, there's several on this call with me right now. But Rick is one of the guys out of the industry that I completely 100% not only respect but trust as well. And so, Rick, I want to welcome you on this call here.
Thanks, Francis. I appreciate it. And I apologize already for it sounds like my mouth is full of gauze. It actually is. I just got back from the dentist and had a tooth extracted. So I'm actually very alert, and I don't usually talk like this. But hopefully, forgive me for that.
Hey, no problem at all, Rick. No problem at all. Rick, I think to start out, we should really know your background. I mean, I know you for over 20 years. Boy, that went fast, didn't it? And I think that people will find your background very diverse and interesting. So maybe you want to start to share that with us.
Sure, yeah. So Francis and I, we've known each other over 20 years. We met in elementary school. That's not true.
The sandbox. The
sandbox, yeah. So I started out actually as a musical theater major, which I guess in the realm of network marketing and communication, that comes in handy. But I was going to be the next Robert Redford. Redford is my last name, and I am a distant cousin. But as I got a little bit older and met my wife-to-be, she convinced me that I'd just be a really talented food service worker. So I decided to go into business. So after leaving college, I became a stockbroker and trader for about 6.5 years. And my focus was on mergers and acquisitions. After the crash in 1987, I decided to get back to my roots. And I had been a very loyal user of nutritional products as a competitive swimmer and water polo player. So I got back into nutrition. I was hired by Weider Nutrition, which is now Schiff Nutrition. And I was with them for 5.5 years. We went from 47 million to 330 million, went public on the New York Stock Exchange. It was a great run. It was the heyday of nutrition, meaning it was a time when nutritional products weren't even in drugstores and grocery stores. And we were a part of that transition. It was a great life and I loved it. From there, the president of our company became the president and CEO of an MLM company called Enrich International. And I followed him over there. And that began my career in the MLM side of health and wellness. I've been doing that now for about 25 years, worked for 2 or 3 different companies, including one that I started back a number of years ago. And I'm currently with a similar company in the industry, and I'm General Manager of North America. Prior to this, I was the president and CEO of a company called ForeverGreen, which was a public company in our industry. That was actually the 3rd time I had been with that company. That never happens in the industry. And before that, I had been president of a transportation company that was non-MLM, that was actually providing black car service and limos and buses to like MLM conventions and so on. So I've had a diverse career. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And that's a little bit about my background.
Well, in my 35 years, January starts 35 years, my 34 years plus, I've met a lot of people, a lot of executives, and Rick, by the way, has 95% been on the corporate side of network marketing. He has not been a distributor. That's not his bailiwick. but he could be very good at it. But out of all these people I've met in the last nearly 35 years, Rick is one of the few that I absolutely 100% trust, because whether you like it or not, he's just going to tell you the truth. And that's actually how you know when somebody's a friend, when they tell you what the truth is and cut away all the other nonsense. So he comes from a really great family, and I can tell you his family right now keeps growing. There's always a picture of another kid on that Facebook of his. How many you got now, Grandpa?
I have 7 grandchildren and 1 on the way.
Wow. There's always one on the way. There always is. I don't know. I think it's like dominoes for him. He just orders one, and one of the kids, one of his girls has another kid, you know. It's fantastic. So, Rick, what really made you fall in love with this industry?
Thank you for asking that question, because I am in love with this industry. It's a love-hate relationship at times, but because it has the best of human behavior and the worst of human behavior at times. And I think everybody who's ever been involved with the industry understands that you're working with a group of volunteers, and those volunteers are humans. And some of those volunteers become very successful despite themselves. And some of them become very successful because of themselves. And you deal with everyone. I love some of the things I love about the industry, Francis. Number one, relationships. When you're selling a product on the store shelf, you don't develop a relationship with the end consumer. But in this industry, you definitely do. And one of my favorite things, and the things I hold most dear, is the relationships that I've created in the industry, including yourself. And I see Steve on the line. Steve, hey, it's good to see you, my friend. But they're lifelong relationships. For instance, I haven't seen Steve in years, and I saw his face, and my eyes just lit up, and I'm like, oh, there's Steve. I haven't seen him. But that's the way this industry is, and I love that. I love the opportunity for someone to get involved with a company despite their race, their religion, their body type, their gender, all of those things. Age, thank you, yeah. Well, I left that one off purposely. But none of those things are a barrier, and there's there's certainly an upside, a huge upside for anyone who makes that decision. I love that. I love the fact that this is really going back to what originally was established as the American dream, that anyone can achieve success. And you just don't see that in the world of business. Having come from the different areas that I was in, certainly not in the entertainment world, so much depends on timing and who you know, and in the business world, the same. So those are the 2 main things, Francis. I love the industry. It runs deep and red through my veins. And it gets me excited to get up every day to be able to share with people the benefits of this industry. So those are just 2 main things.
I feel the same way. These days, I wake up in the morning and I'm excited to talk to people about, our devices and our products. And it just keeps getting better for me. I'm very, very grateful, and I'm grateful for the people that are on the call and the people that will be watching this video later, because your world of experience is vast. And we've joked around a lot about, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's not just a movie, folks. It describes this industry, because you do meet a lot of really good people, sincere people that have a product experience. And from then on, they decide that this could be, their future. And if they're in a good company, a stable company, like mine or like the one that Rick represents, then they got a long, fun run to have. They're going to be safe. But if they're in a company that's, let's say, not so ethical, you just don't know what that owner's going to do down the road. And that's why we're fortunate to be in really, really good, stable companies that have ethical owners.
Yeah.
And so I would say, what do you find the most fun, Rick? Because you are the president of fun, and is it the traveling? Is it the, what is it? Because how many countries have you been to?
I don't even have a count of that, Francis, but I've been to many countries, and for a while I was with one company. I was over Asia Pacific, and managed directly 4 markets, and then managed indirectly 5 additional markets. And I was in Asia 2 weeks of every month for 3.5 straight years. And so I counted one day, Korea is the one where I had been to the most, because I actually was GM there for a short time. I've been to Seoul, Korea and South Korea more than 50 times. And you're talking about a kid who grew up in a very lower middle-class family. Really, my sphere of travel was about like this, a few states. If you would have gone back to my 14-year-old self, and this is a long way of answering your question, going back to my 14-year-old self and told me that I would have traveled to as many countries as I have, especially to Asia. I grew up in a very white middle-class neighborhood and school. And I think I knew 4 or 5 Asian people, but it wasn't commonplace. It was, and I always had a great relationship with them. And I grew up in a very multicultural family, being a family of entertainment. There was no prejudice, there was no bias. And so for me, it wasn't looking at someone differently. It was just understanding culturally that I didn't understand their culture. And so when I had the opportunity to travel extensively to Europe, to Asia, to many other markets, I fell in love. I fell in love with cultures. I fell in love with being able to immerse myself. I didn't speak the language, but I spoke the language of love. And when you speak the language of love and heart, then you can have someone translate your words in terms of the language itself. But when they know that you care and you truly do want to understand and know them better, there is a cultural bridge that comes together that I find to be one of the, you asked for fun, that's one of the fun things but it's not just fun, it's so rewarding. I remember when I finished traveling to Asia, and I had a very close relationship with one of the Korean leaders, who now owns his own company, by the way. And he and I were in the car riding to the airport. He was the master distributor in Korea. And in his broken English, he said, "Mr. Redford, not only are you a very close business associate, but you are my brother. And if you understand the Korean culture, that is very rare. That
yeah, it is.
That first of all, they would verbalize that, but second of all, that they felt that way. So I think for me, goes back to the number one thing that I talked about, that's relationships. But the relationships you create all over the world, where you don't have a common language, but you find a commonality in your culture and your passion and your enthusiasm and your willingness to understand each other and to help. I love that. This industry is so full of fun, from the incentive trips to the events to the travel. I've traveled with some incredible people, thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. One of the other fun things I love about the business is opening up new markets. So whether they be international markets or US markets, Des Moines, Iowa, it's the same.
People live there.
I know, just a few, but it takes kind of the same effort, where you roll up your sleeves, and it starts with one-on-ones, and then maybe on two-on-twos, and then maybe you have 4 people in front of you, and then maybe 6 or 8. I remember opening up for another company, Japan, and I went over with a distributor, and we sat in the coffee shop of the hotel, and the first meetings were had with 1 or 2 people. We've literally started with 1 or 2 people. Within 12 months, we were up to $2 million a month. And it started with just that. And I love that. You say I think more like a distributor. It's absolutely true. I have been a distributor once, by the way. It was early on. It was before I got involved with this as a career. I joined New Skin way back early in the game. In fact, I was 3rd generation from base of the tree, if you could believe that. And
Wow.
I signed up 12 people in my first week. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what to do with them. And I just eventually kind of fizzled out. But I fell in love with the business model at that time. And so I think that's what gives me the basis of my love of the industry. But being able to open a market, and it's the same with, going to Moscow, Idaho. Well, if you go into Idaho and you don't know anybody, the best thing you can do is start those business meetings. And fortunately, back then we didn't have Zoom like we do now, where we can see each other face to face on a webinar, and I don't have to travel to Moscow, Idaho. But back in those days, you would travel that market and you would just start building. And you and a leader, like you and I, Francis, would be starting coffee shop meetings and rolling up our sleeves.
Right.
That is awesome. That is such a great experience, and I love that.
Our office was Starbucks, wasn't it?
Uh-huh. Oh, it was, yeah.
So Rick, after 3 decades in the industry here, when you meet a newbie who's full of fire and enthusiasm, how do you suggest they start?
It's so funny. First of all, I want to share one of my main philosophies. So if you're listening to this call, no matter what company you're with or how successful you are, this is one of my tips to success. The sooner you can disconnect yourself from the outcome of any one person or conversation, the faster your business will grow. So the reason why I say that before I answer your question is that we get so fired up when we meet somebody that is young, impressionable, excited, a go-getter, can talk well or speak well. And we're like, they're going to kill it. They're going to nail this. And you start cashing your emotional checks. And then they give up, because all of that talent amounts to nothing without these few tips that I'm going to answer your question. And then how many times did you meet somebody that you thought were kind of sluggish or a little bit frumpy, or, they didn't speak all that well. They were just kind of good old boys or good old ladies from the South even. And they just destroy it. They just go out and they just kill it. And you're going, man, if I had $1 for every time somebody failed that I thought would succeed, or every time you had $1 for everybody that succeeded that you thought would fail, you'd be a millionaire. And that absolutely is true. So the key to success, in my opinion, is understanding the DNA of your comp plan of your business. What is that DNA? Because and what I mean by that is the simple duplicatable steps. So if it's a title, if it's a step, like when you first get in, you want to hit this, and that's the core of duplication. I think that building 4x4x4, no matter what comp plan you're in, is a magic DNA. Now, it may not be yours. Yours might be 3. Well, it's okay. I'm not suggesting it has to be 4. I'm just saying, whatever that duplicatable model is, that DNA of the business, that's what you want to know, and that's what you go after. And this is a numbers business. Here's the biggest mistake people make. It's a mistake I made as a distributor early. So I brought in 12 people. I didn't use 3-way calls. I was so excited. I was complete ignorance on fire. But I went out and signed up 12 people. Well, what do you do? What do you do with them then? They didn't know what to do, because all they knew was me being ignorance on fire. So understand the duplication model, but use somebody, a mentor in your upline that is able to convey the message. Utilize them in your first steps. What it does is it creates a duplicatable model, meaning if I call Francis, I said, hey, Francis, I've got a really good person on the line. Can you get on the line with me? Yeah, sure I will. So they get on. Well, the good thing is that person now knows they can either connect with me or connect with Francis. They don't have to know anything. They could get started today and be successful. If I try to go out and share what I know in that first short business, I'm not going to be able to duplicate well, because I just don't know enough. I'm really on fire. I'm excited. So tap into a mentor in your upline, find out what that duplication model is, and then go for it. Understanding that it's so funny. I'm going to share with you 2 quick experiences. Is that okay?
Sure.
I became a stockbroker in the 1980s. This was before lead generation. It was before the internet really started. I mean, the Dow, if you can believe it, I remember the day that the Dow went through 600 points.
Jeez Louise.
It's now 25,000 plus. When it went through 600, we all threw our trade tickets in the air. But so I got my license, and I was a young father. I was, and it was my commitment. I said, there's no back door. I'm going to succeed at this no matter what. I got my license, and that's a grueling process in itself. I walked into the office. They said, here's your desk. Good luck. There was a phone and a phone book. That was my office, nothing else. I thought, first of all, I was a smart ass teenager. No big surprise there if you know that I know Francis. So I'm a smart alecky teenager. I had no credibility, no sphere of influence. So I said to myself, I don't have a back door. I committed to make this successful. I'm going to call a page of the phone book, the business section of the phone book, before I go to lunch. And I'm going to call another page of the phone book before I go home at night. That was my mechanism for creating success. Well, if somebody hears that today, first of all, I go, what's a phone book? Second of all, they're going to say, that is the worst possible success percentage-wise you can ever have. And I agree, but I didn't have a choice. You know what? I had no back door. I promised my wife that I was going to be successful. I was going to get everything I had to be successful. And I set those goals for myself. Well, in the first year, the first couple of months they were a struggle. But I will tell you, the first year, I had a book generating over 100,000 a year in commissions, which back then that was my goal. It was a good living. It was a good income at the time. It was more than I had ever conceived of. So 90% of my customers either came as direct calls, cold calls from the phone book, or referrals from direct phone calls from the phone book. So that is, to me, the pathway to success. My son-in-law is a new employee. He was a professional basketball player in Europe for 10 years. He retired last year, and he came home and he said, he started with a company, and it's a sales company. There was about 3 weeks ago, he came to me and he said, you know how many calls I made in the last 2 days? I said, how many? He said, 620. I said, 620 phone calls in 2 days? I said, why? What's the next highest the highest amount the next person? He said, 240. And I said, you're a talented guy and you speak well, but why are you doing that many? He said, I promised my wife, my daughter, that I would get into a house in a year. They've been living with us. And he said, I promised we would get into a house in a year. I set a goal. That's my goal. I don't have a choice. I just went out, and that's the amount of calls I need to make to be able to earn the kind of money that I need to do to get into a house. If everyone on this call and everybody that heard this call took upon themselves that kind of urgency and commitment, every one of you would hit your financial goals. Every one of you. What happens is we get waylaid, we lose track of, we don't have a strong enough vision. The goal isn't strong enough to pull us, whatever it is, or even worse, we're not willing to do what it's going to take to get there. It's a numbers game. The more people you call, the more your pipeline is, the better results you're going to have. So I thought I would answer your question, Francis, with two different experiences, because I think that they're very relevant to achieving.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. What is it biblically? Where there is no vision, the people shall perish. Mm-hmm. And where there's no vision in your business will die. Amen. You have to see yourself succeeding. You have to see yourself attracting great people, great leaders. And if it's divided with a whole bunch of other things, it's like these crazy people who try to do, more than one company. They've never succeeded in one company, but now they're trying to do 2 and 3 because they like the other products. That's nuts, isn't it? So that's very, very good information, Rick. And he's in sales. Your son-in-law. He's the guy from Brazil, right?
Yeah, he's from Brazil, and they lived in Italy for 10 years playing basketball.
Yeah, I remember you went to visit them. Yeah, because you came back and you had tomato sauce all over your shirt. And I said, "Have you been to Italy?" And you said, "Yeah, you can tell from my shirt."
Multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's real good information. So, you're saying that people really have to make that commitment to succeed. They have to have the vision that they're going to succeed. And, and I keep it in one little phrase, be unstoppable. Since I've been doing what I'm doing, I wake up at sometimes 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, shower, shave, and maybe have breakfast, maybe not. And I start hitting the phones here on the East Coast. And then a couple hours later, I start hitting the Midwest. By the way, Dave Garrison says hi.
Oh, hey.
And yeah, I don't know if he's on the call. I don't think he is. Then, a few hours after that, when it gets to be 12, 1, 2, then I start hitting the Pacific side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be that committed, really, to be one of the big dogs, to run with the wolves. You really do. And you've been around a lot of those people, and they all have one thing in common, don't they, Rick? What is it?
Consistency.
Right. Consistency.
I have another equation. I know you know I have multiple equations, but the one equation to me, it speaks to exactly what you're saying. Belief plus intention plus action equals success.
Yeah.
Every time. Now, I'm not suggesting that every call or every person. I'm just saying that equation works every time. Belief plus intention
yes.
plus action equals success. And belief is really a critical thing, Francis. You highlighted something, vision. I think that is the biggest breakdown of anyone who gets started. Would you ever start a trip without a destination in mind? I mean, I guess some people at times have done that, but would you say, okay, I'm going to go to, I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm just going to start driving. Well, some people have, but the reality is if you want to get anywhere, you have to know where you're going to go first. And then you map out your path to get there. The mapping is the secondary. The first most important thing is where you're going to go. And so many people fail to do that. They would never start a trip, let's call it a family trip, where you just get in the car and say, we're just going to go, wherever the car takes us. Well, you're going to.
That's if your father's Chevy Chase.
Except for he knew he was going to Wally World, so he knew that. But the reality is you're going to say, okay, this is where we're going. And then you say, it's going to take us this many days to get there. And then you start mapping out your path. But so many people start up in network marketing. They say, I'm just going to start calling people without any idea about what they want, where they want to be or what they want to go. And the way that I describe it is create a video of your life 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, achieving success. So whatever success is going to look and feel like to you, create a video of yourself in that moment. And it is so clear to me. We don't have time this morning, but I could start describing for you my place. And it's a beach somewhere, Francis. You know me too well, but
yeah.
Everything that's important to me, my family, each individual member of my family are there, and I can just start describing it to you. And there is going to be no doubt in any of your minds that I know exactly where this is, what it feels like. I can describe the air, I can describe the taste, the touch, the feel, awaken every sense that I have to describe this. It is so clear to me. And the reason why that's so powerful is that in those moments of doubt or despair, I replay that video and it tells me, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. This is why I'm willing to make those calls. I was on a call. I'm a corporate guy, so I don't have a downline. I was on a super Saturday for 4 hours on Saturday, and then a recruiting call Zoom for 2 hours after that. On a weekend, on a Saturday, on the day that my newest granddaughter was born.
Wow.
Why? Why would I do that? It's because I understand it takes that level of commitment to be successful. I understand that. I don't look for excuses. I look for opportunities.
And that's why you've committed to having a beach house next to my beach house in Maui.
And it is Maui.
Yeah, right on. This has been so great. Rick has got so many stories. I wish this was a 4-hour Zoom call, but of course it can't be. and I think maybe we can open up to some questions, because Rick's got a lot of knowledge and he's got tremendous experience. Katrina, do you want to open up the call?
Yeah, I definitely.
You
I
probably
think
have a
start with
question.
yeah, I do. You know me. I've always got questions. So Rick, that's been great what you've been saying. And one thing that stood out was your 4x4x4, the magic DNA. Could you explain that just a little bit before I open it up to other people?
It really doesn't make any difference what the comp plan is. If it's a binary, then you're going to put your 4 people, obviously, down in those 2 legs, but you're personal enrolling 4 people. Then you're teaching them how to enroll 4 people. Then here's the key. You're working with your 4 to help them learn how to teach their 4 how to go out and get it. Here's the mistake people make. I go get my 4, and then I go help my people get their 4, and then I go help their people go get their 4. I'm not creating any kind of form of duplication. So in the beginning, it's me going to get my 4. Then I'm mentoring and working with my 4 very closely to help them, to be their support mechanism to go get their 4. Then I'm teaching my 4 how to help their 4 go get theirs. And where people break down is they don't take themselves out of the equation soon enough. And it's part of its ego, part of its, having to feel relevant and so on. The best, and this is the best and the hardest thing for a network marketing leader to do, to build leaders that are independent of them. It's the best thing you could do, but it's one of the hardest things to do because of the need to be relevant and the ego side of it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the reason usually why they're doing that. So if you build, and it doesn't matter if it's a unilevel or a binary or a matrix or a hybrid of some sort, duplicating yourself. And I use 4x4 just because I look at Amway's model, which was one of the first comp plans out there, and it's an older stair-step breakaway type of a unilevel. But if you were building 4x4, you would be able to succeed in that Amway comp plan. If you're building one of the newfangled, the newest hybrid binaries, building 4 where you put your 2 in each leg and duplicate that and help duplicate that. In a hybrid binary, the best way to maximize your income is if you're flip-flopping your legs each week or every multiple weeks, where your power leg becomes pay legs become power, and so on and so forth, back and forth. People, and I don't know what the comp plan is, so I'm not trying to pretend to know what LifeWaves is, and I'm sure it's an awesome comp plan, but there is no perfect comp plan, by the way, and I believe that very strongly. The perfect comp plan is the one that you work.
Exactly.
But the reality is we forget that. We forget that the magic is in the simple duplicatable model. That's why when I said the first step, understand what that DNA is, and then work the crap out of that DNA. Just work it, consistently duplicate. Now, what do I do when I get my 4? Rinse and repeat. I would always be looking for 4 to 6 serious business builders, because not everybody will do it. Not everybody will be successful. Even if I had 24, I would be looking for 4 to 6. It's part of the language that I would use as a leader. As I'm talking to someone, I'm looking for 4 to 6 serious business builder. Are you one of those? So hopefully that expands it a little bit, but that's how I would duplicate the 4x4 model.
Excellent.
Like we were on that call
helpful.
the other day. We were on your call, Rick, and I kept talking about the 1 through 6, in your business.
Yeah.
And we're always looking for those, 4s and 5s, the leaders and the leaders of leaders. And,
Absolutely.
if we keep doing that, maybe we'll run into a 6, right?
Yeah.
Katrina, did that answer your question pretty well?
Oh, yes, that was really great. Thank you, Rick.
You bet.
All right, I think we'll open it up. If anybody wants to ask a question, please unmute yourself. Steve, do you want me to? I think you have to unmute yourself. That would be great.
Rick.
There you are.
Rick. How long have I known you? 17, 18 years is almost as long as you've known Francis.
Yeah, pretty close.
This is wild. Hey, I've got a little bit of fur on my face, and I see you do too. Man, we are still basically simpatico. We're still, this is wild. I haven't talked to you in a couple of years. I think I still got your cell phone number somewhere, but darn it, it's great to see you again. And I totally agree with you. I don't have any brilliant observations to make today, except just to ratify what you've said, particularly about the friendships. I mean, Rick, I've known you since forever. You're an awesome dude. And I still look up to you. I mean, you were one of my mentors back in the ForeverGreen days. And here I am still being mentored by you. And I think that's brilliant. I think that that there's just something about these long connections. We've gone in different directions, but we are still tight. I mean, it's like I haven't seen you in years, and yet I kind of feel like the last time we spoke was yesterday. So I just want to reaffirm that there is something about this industry that is just so magic in terms of the personal connections, which don't go away, even though we haven't physically connected in years. I'm still emotionally connected to you, dude.
Yeah, feel the same way, Steve. It's good to see you.
Steve, thanks so much. Appreciate it, buddy. You are really a special, warm, soulful guy, and I'm proud to have you on our team, and thanks for all the work you do.
And I'm blessed to have you as my mentor, as well as Rick, my long-term original MLM network. Back when I was just a rookie and was clueless, Rick gave me so many good magic. I like your word, the DNA. I think because that's so fundamental. That's at the cellular level, and that's even more important. You know, we know from the world of science that we have heart waves and brain waves, and our brain waves go out a few feet, but our heart waves go out, what is it? Something like 30, maybe even 50 feet. This has been actually physically measured. Yeah. So it's from the heart, it's not from the brain. And I think this is where, Rick, you've been so brilliant teaching us about the fact that heart waves go out a lot farther into the universe than our limited brain waves.
It's funny you should say that, Steve, because next week, the speaker on next Monday is actually one of the founders of HeartMath. So she'll be on next week. But
wow. Talk about a nice
thank you so much for your comments, Steve. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, buddy. We got any other questions? And this was such a great thing that you came on, Steve. Any other questions for Rick Redford?
Okay, you'll just need to unmute yourselves or put on your picture and I can help you unmute.
Is anybody sending comments or anything?
No, not yet. Well, that was very helpful, Steve. Your reminder about relationships was really one of the things that John and I have been enjoying so much. One, having a chance to talk with Francis almost every day now, even though he moved to Florida, we're still in California. And it's so nice to be involving some of our dear friends. We've got Siri on the call and Felix, and even my mom is on the call. She's in Georgia. Wow. and everybody's experiencing wonderful things with the X39 patch. I don't know how much Rick, you've been exposed to yet, but if you're not already giving it a try, it's definitely worth trying. We're all
I can always send him some, no problem.
Great. So great. Francis, do you want to say some closing comments?
Well, actually, I have a question, Katrina.
Hey, John.
Rick, Katrina's husband. Rick, when you talk about, you know, finding your 4 people, and it's really just, you start with your warm market, or does it matter if you're cold calling, you know, getting lists, buying lists? Does any approach, basically, it really doesn't matter?
So I'll give you my perspective, and then Francis is a master of this, so I'm sure he has his own ideas as well on that. But for me, a cold lead is only cold because I haven't met them yet. And I really, truly believe that. I believe that you can develop a relationship in seconds. And the magic to that is of course, it's a lot more difficult. No even argument that it's a lot easier for me to pick up a phone and call Francis or Steve than it is to call someone that I have never met before, because there's already something that we can build on. When I was cold calling as a stockbroker, I just worked through kind of my own way of presenting things. And somebody had asked me on here, do I have any recommended scripts? I really don't, because for me, depending on what the opportunity is that I'm representing or the product I'm representing, the sooner that I can get to a yes or no, the better off I am with a cold call. It's just that simple. A cold call to me is a means to determine very quickly if someone is open or not. I like 3 questions. The 3 questions are I use in person or I use on a call. Now, I've developed these questions over a few years because of hit and miss. First of all, you don't want to ask too personal of a question, especially if it's a man and a woman and a man that's talking, because then it's always misjudged or misinterpreted. But if you ask the question to draw a personal response, but by itself is not a personal question, then it's magic. So the 3 questions are: 1, are you as healthy today as you thought you'd be at this stage of life? Now, it is not a personal question, but trust me, everybody I ask that question to starts pouring their personal information out to me. It's like I become their bartender. I'll give you a simple example. I was in an elevator riding up, and there was a guy who was probably in his 20s or 30s. He was not very old, pretty overweight, not dressed very well, and had a bag of fast food that was like literally this tall, and grease was coming out the side. And I looked at him and I said, excuse me, can I ask you a question? And he kind of looked at me like, oh, what do you want type thing. And I said, are you as healthy today as you thought you'd be at this stage of your life? And he kind of looked at me, and he looked down at his bag, and he looked at me, and he looked at his stomach, and he looked at his bag, and he said, what, are you kidding me? And I said, no, I'm just doing a little survey. Just wondered, I've known people that didn't look healthy, that felt they were healthy, and others the opposite. So are you as healthy today as you thought you'd be? And he said, you have no idea. We ended up putting the elevator on hold when he got to his floor. And I said, you know what? I can help you with that. And that was all. That was the only conversation. And it turned a cold intro into a warm conversation, warm lead. The second one, are you doing as well financially as you thought you'd be at this stage of life? Again, very simple question. Some people might say, that's too personal, or I don't want to talk about it. That's fine, because I don't care. All I'm doing is telling a story or asking if somebody wants to talk. If they don't want to talk, move on. There's billions of people out there. What always amazes me when somebody says, I've already worked through my list. Really? That's amazing. You've already talked to 100 billion people? That is incredible. I've never met anybody who have already talked to 100 billion people. It's like, they're so short-sighted in what you can do and who you can talk to. The third question came out of a conversation I had on an airplane. I was upgraded. I was sitting in first class, and the guy I was next to was a really fit, handsome guy. I asked him the first question. He said, oh man, I am so healthy. I'm working out this, I'm doing this. I'm, leaner than I've ever been. I'm stronger than I've ever been. I said, that's awesome. I said, are you doing as well financially as you thought you'd be? He's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I own this many companies. I'm so successful. I'm as wealthy as God. I mean, he went into all sorts of, this whole thing. And I'm thinking, wow. My first thought was, I don't even want to talk to this guy anymore. But so then I said to him, wow, congratulations. I don't know if I've ever met anybody that was like you. That is incredible. Congratulations. Are you leaving the kind of legacy that you thought you'd want to leave? And it was so interesting. His posture changed. He kind of sat back in his chair. The facade was lifted. And he said, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. As well as we've done, everything we've done has been directed inward to us. And now we just want to make a difference in the world. I said, yeah, I can help you with that. So those are the 3 questions that I've used to turn a cold conversation into a warm lead. Hopefully that helps.
Those are great questions, Rick. I've never heard you ask those things. brilliant stuff. That's really great. Yeah, because, you know, questions are the answers, aren't they? You know?
We have one more question from Siri. Siri, go ahead.
Oh, great, Siri.
Good morning. Thank you for your time, everybody, and your sharing. I just want to know, when you do your video, are you just like interviewing yourself for your belief, vision, and actions, or how does that work?
Thank you. Yeah, it's when I say video, because I think people can relate to this. I'm replaying a vision of a scenario that's playing out in my mind. So it's not an interview as much as it is a video playing of somewhere in the future that has everything that's meaningful to me. And if you know anything about me, and Francis has known a lot about me for years, and we had an opportunity one day, it was like 90 some odd degrees in Sarasota, and we're walking those white sand beaches, and he's like, I'm hot. I'm like, I just flopped down and I laid down and I went like this, and you know.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, heat and a beach are important to me, because they also they signify something. They signify a level of success to me. So the video that's playing is me. I'm sitting with all of my family. I'm in a place that's meaningful to me, and there's elements of this vision that are different than the fact that I've been there before, because I have been there before a number of times. First of all, my whole family's there. We're brown, which means we didn't just get there. We're not sunburned and peeling off that first day of sun. We're brown because we've been there for a while. Everybody's happy. We're enjoying it. And the difference and I'm simplifying this big time, because I could go into I can describe the air, I can describe everything. But the difference is that I've been able to treat my whole family to this trip, and I don't have to worry about paying for it. It's a simple, some people might go, that doesn't even signify anything. Well, it does to me. It has all those things that does to me. And that's
Right.
why yours has to be personal to you. And it's more a replay of a vision of something taking place in the future that has all those elements. Hopefully, Siri, that answers your question.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great piece of information, Rick. That's really good. Did John get what he needs from his question? I'm going to guess that's a yes.
Yeah, he has to unmute himself to answer. We'll see.
I see.
I'm sure that was an excellent response.
So Rick, Katrina's husband is actually the fellow, John, that asked you those questions, and he's from Australia, so he has a headache because he's right side up right now. So, because he's from, down under.
Right. I got the accent. I knew exactly where he was. Well, not exactly.
Yeah.
The country he was from.
Katrina and John are just remarkable people. John, are you back, mate?
Yeah, mate, I'm back. I figured it out.
Okay, yeah.
But that was a great answer, by the way. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions for Rick? I tell you, this was a great call today, Rick. Thanks very much. I appreciate your time and especially your friendship all these years, man. I would embarrass you and tell the group about how you had my back one time when somebody was talking about me. Yeah, you were diplomatic, but you stepped up for me, and of course, that only puts one more brick on the house of our dear and precious friendship. But that's many years ago already, and when I heard that, I was like, wow. And you never mentioned it to me. That was from somebody else. So, when you hear stuff like that, it just it strengthens your heart to heart, and that real friendship becomes even more real. So, and that's interesting. You never mentioned it to me. You didn't feel like it was important or relevant. You just wanted to stick up for your friend, and and that's why you are where you are, buddy. You are a super success, and I used to call you the Will Rogers of network marketing. Everybody likes. I've never heard a negative thing about you. And if I did, you know what would happen? That guy would be picked up off the ground.
Well, I appreciate it, Francis. Thank you for allowing me to come on today. I know you came on our call last week and did a fabulous job. And this is so good. This is sharing heart and soul and best practices, no matter what company we're involved with, is such an important piece of the equation. I'm sad when people leave a company and they feel like they have to trash the company to justify their action, or the company trashes them to justify why they left. And the fact that I had been with, and Steve had mentioned ForeverGreen, I had been with ForeverGreen 3 different times. You don't go back to a company 3 times when you trash them or they trash you. There's no point to it. If you can't stand on your own, then you shouldn't be standing, is what I've always said. And so, you know, I appreciate the fact that we've been able to maintain these friendships and especially share best practices. And we should all be willing to do that. It makes our industry better and stronger. The more better players we have, the more players we have committed to each other and committed to making the industry better and finer and provide more opportunities for people, the better off we all are. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you bet. I think that whole ForeverGreen thing was magical, because I remember flying out there to go meet Ron and to go to ForeverGreen. And I remember that you had just left the company you were with. And it was so cool that all worked out for all those years. Yeah. And that today, you and Ron have a very good relationship. Well, we all have a good relationship with Ron. He's about as cool as you get, man, you know? Yeah. He's definitely one of us, for sure.
Well, and you were the one that introduced us. You mentioned my name to Ron and put that together, and I appreciate that, and we'll be grateful for that for forever. Not that I'm still there, but because of the experience that was created from that. So I appreciate that.
Well, you know, Rick, I just had this instinct about it, and it thank God it worked out. So thank God so much has worked out for all of us, because we've all had some, you know, very serious stuff, but you know, we've all been around for each other, and that's really what it is. You know, I mean, so many of these network marketing relationships are built on, you know, are you making me money? And you know, when you're not making me money anymore, you know, you're not my friend anymore. And so that's a very toxic part of the industry. Sure it is. But the other part that's beautiful is what you and I have developed through the years. Mm-hmm. And a real trusted friend. And I can count, you know, that on my right hand, you know, and it's great, because you know, we said it on your call the other day, another word for this industry is called trust marketing. Yeah. You know, when you trust somebody, and you and I both are very deep, sensitive guys with very different demeanors, but we both get this. You know, one of the biggest pains you can ever have is to feel like you know somebody and then they betray you. Mm. That is just, because it hits us really deep when somebody does that. And anyway, fortunately, we don't have to, you know, we don't have to go through that very, very much anymore, both being pretty established in our own fields. But Rick, I don't know how to thank you, man. This was such a good call. Appreciate you so much, bro. And congratulations on your new branch off the Redford tree. And yeah. How many are you expecting to have? Of course, you know, I mean, we still have the prodigal son. He still could bring you a couple of babies too.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, bring it on. You know, I mean, I realize I have no control over this, so as many as they'll provide for me, I'll take. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. That's great, man.